Welcome back, my awesome people. In today's episode, I am here honored to be with Matthew Tuttle, the CEO and founder of Tuttle Capital Management, a leading innovator in the ETF space. And if I know many of you have following the inverse Cramer trend, well, guess what? They have an ETF that actually follows that as well. So, Matthew Tuttle, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing amazing as well. I know you're a very busy person, especially right now with the quarters coming up. Let's get right into it. Can you just start off by telling us more about yourself, about Tuttle Capital, and what inspired you to start Tuttle Capital with maybe a little bit about its history and its core mission?
Yeah, I am, at my heart, I'm an investor and trader. So I'm actively managing my own portfolio, as much as I can. I'm obviously busy. But one of the things I like or really like about being an ETF issuer is I can create ETF products I want to trade myself. So, I started out my career on Wall Street, didn't like what was passing for financial advice out there. So left, started up my own wealth management firm to try to fix that, and give people kind of conflict-free advice. I've also always been a big believer that the conventional wisdom is neither. Wall Street kind of, the advice they provide is things that make them more money, not necessarily you. Started having other financial advisors see what I was doing and say, hey, can you manage money for us? And so I started doing that, then started doing that with ETFs about 10 years ago and have really never looked back. So now we've got, I think, 27 ETFs. We're always launching more. And before the day started, had close to 3 billion in assets under management. Not a great day in the market, so I'm down to about 2.5, but that is what it is.
No, that is amazing. And I love how you said that, you saw how other financial firms were not really giving the investor, the time of day, and you wanted to go out and start your own. That's kind of my journey as well with starting this YouTube channel. I've been, watching financial videos for years, especially during the COVID lockdowns, and I didn't really gain anything from it. So I figured, hey, I have this knowledge. Why don't I start my own channel and see what can come out of it?
That's awesome.
Matthew, so Matthew, can you elaborate on some of the key products that Tuttle Capital offers? Like for example, I know you have a SPAC ETF, ticker symbol SPCX, and also one of my favorite ETFs, T-SPY by Sai Katara. Viewers, I've had him a few times on this channel. So can you give us some of the key products that Tuttle Capital offers?
Yeah, and really what we try to do is try to be as innovative as possible, look for, areas that people want and try to launch products that are better and look for areas that people are going to want. And also, look for areas that are going to be the key themes in the future. So like right now, our most popular ETF is EUAD, which is the only European defense and aerospace ETF. And it kind of goes to how we think thematically is we launched this in October with the thought that Trump's probably going to win. Obviously back at the end of October, nobody was sure. But, if he did, he was going to make the European countries pay for their own defense, which has happened. And that's been our fastest growing product recently. Another key one for us has been 2x long MicroStrategy. That's a name that's certainly in the news. And really what we like about MicroStrategy is it allows a lot of investors who want to be in crypto but can't to kind of indirectly be in crypto. Obviously you mentioned T-SPY and SPCX. We've also got Brendan Wood Top Gun ETF BWTG, which is really revolutionary because they're out there surveying all the top money managers, in the world, and not asking them what they own. They're asking them what they're going to buy. So nothing out there like that. And then TGLR, which is run by Nancy Tangler, who's one of the only talking heads in the media out there who actually knows what she's talking about. And a lot of her focus is on companies that are utilizing AI. So, not the NVIDIAs, which I think are probably a little bit overbought here and may come down some more, but the old economy companies that are utilizing AI. And then finally, we recently launched BEGS, which is Bitcoin, Ether, Gold, and Silver all together in one package.
Oh,
And there's a
wow.
lot of interesting aspects on that.
That is actually very unique, especially if you add Bitcoin, the digital gold of this era, and gold into one ETF. And especially now recently with many countries, including Donald Trump, creating the Bitcoin reserve. And when you're looking at Tuttle Capital and its primary investing strategies, I know you do focus on thematics and leverage, especially with short and long. For those that may or may not know what a leverage stock is or a leverage ETF is, can you just elaborate more on that, and also elaborate more on the T-Rex series? Those I've been looking at it, and they are very, very unique. You got MicroStrategy, Apple, Nvidia, and yeah, can you please elaborate on that?
Yeah, so I was involved with the very first levered stock, issuance in the U.S. They've been in Europe for a while, and since then it's really taken off. And the idea is you give somebody 2 times the daily exposure of the movement in a stock price. And a lot of times people look at that like, oh my God, that's way too risky. And really, what I look at in the ETF space is what we're doing is we're providing tools. You can use those tools the right way or the wrong way, but we're providing you tools. And so, a 2X on a MicroStrategy, a NVIDIA, on a Tesla, and we have Apple, Microsoft, Roblox, Robinhood, DJT, ARM, Google, and then some Bitcoin stuff. And it really is a way, if you're really bullish on the underlying, to be able to magnify that. It's also, an alternative to options. Because options are a way, if you're comfortable with options, you can get leverage, but there's advantages and disadvantages there. And one of the disadvantages is you can't trade it after hours. So, yeah, we've seen a lot of inflows into those products. And we're going to keep coming up with, what are the single names that people want to trade?
And I definitely agree with you, because options can be kind of complex and complicated for the
If you don't know
average.
what you're doing on options, stay away from options. Most option buyers lose money, and a lot of option sellers end up getting taken out on a cart, because that's the one thing you can lose more than you put in.
Exactly. I mean, once you get into those margin debts, there's no return from that. And
Yeah.
many of my viewers are not option investors. So thankfully, that's good, because they're more ETF dividend investors. And I like the point that you said about, if you are bullish, especially with something like MicroStrategy, I mean, crypto's not really going anywhere, and they are the easy passageway to getting into the crypto field. So me personally, I am highly bullish on crypto, and the 2X, like currently I know ETHU, another ticker symbol, there many people are into that because it is 2X leveraged. But I
Yep.
think with your ETF suite, it will be definitely profitable. And so when we look at Tuttle Capital, what separates Tuttle Capital ETFs, or not just the ETFs, but its management team or just its company as a whole, from other management firms?
I mean, I think a few things. First off, is what I mentioned before. I am an active investor and trader. So I bring that to our product development. I also move very quickly on new products. There's no committee. I wake up in the morning, hey, I think this is a great idea. Let's go. I'll try things that, I think might have an interest. And, I'm also not afraid of pissing people off. We don't do the inverse Cramer anymore. Timing did not work out with that. We launched it right before NVIDIA basically announced AI to the world. I would do it again. Cramer hates me. I was the guy that did the inverse Kathy Wood. Kathy Wood doesn't like me much either, but I think those were products that had to be done. And if someone's going to do them, I'm going to do them. I've done a lot of other things that we've either launched or filed for that raised some eyebrows, and that's fine. I mean, I don't mind ruffling a few feathers. If I think something needs to be done, then I'm the guy to do it.
I actually love that because you're not bothered by any red tape or anything holding you back by pushing the boundaries. And I mean, the inverse Kramer, inverse Kathy Wood, those are definitely a good time a few years ago. And so when we look at Tuttle Capital, when you decide on sectors and industries, as you said, there's nothing holding you back. How do you pick these sectors or these companies? Is there any strategy that you use, or is it more
there is. So, a few things. Again, being an investor, and we teach people something that I call the heat formula, and it's hedges, edges, asymmetry, and themes. So the T is themes. I'm a big believer you always want to be invested in today and tomorrow's themes. And we know the themes today. That's fairly simple. You just need to keep your eyes open. I mean, anyone who's used ChatGPT realizes, wow, this is going to be a game changer. Now, in looking at today's themes, we have a process we go through. Number one is, all right, who are going to be the winners? And let's use AI as an example. NVIDIA, obvious winner of AI. But you don't stop there. Then you need to figure out, okay, who are the companies that NVIDIA needs to create AI? Because I can't just give you a NVIDIA GPU and you're running AI. You need software, hardware, data centers, power, cooling, all sorts of different things. And then we don't stop there. What are the companies that supply the suppliers? So if we're going to build more data centers, who's getting those contracts? So we're thinking of that. Then we're also always thinking, what are the possible, next generation themes? So EUAD, European defense, we launched before Trump got elected, basically thinking, all right, Trump gets in, again there, it was a little squirrely. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. And here's what's going to happen with Europe. One of the ones I recently filed for is AI in healthcare, because Jensen Huang said a couple of years ago he thinks the biggest impact of AI is going to be in healthcare. Mark Andreessen was on a podcast, said that a couple months ago. And then Nancy Pelosi went out and bought Tempest AI, which is an AI healthcare company. I'm looking at that and saying, all right, we got to be in AI in healthcare. The other thing I recently filed for is a UFO disclosure ETF.
Oh, wow.
And, we'll see what happens. I mean, you've got people testifying in front of Congress saying that we're reverse engineering alien technology.
If and that's they do have the Space Force now too.
I mean, you've got a bunch of stuff going on. And if that's the case, that will entirely reshape our economy if any of that technology gets out. So I filed for an ETF for it. We'll see what happens. I mean, it may never come out, but if it does, we're going to be there. So that's how I'm always thinking about themes.
Well, that's the best way to, push those boundaries again, right? Like right now, people might look at it, oh, UFO, but then say in a year or two, it actually comes to pass, and there you are. You were on the grassroots. And just to go back to what you mentioned with AI and healthcare, I interviewed Dr. Nishat Trivedi a couple of weeks ago. He's the portfolio manager for Emerald Life Sciences, and he said the exact same thing, especially with now quantum chips and AI revolutionizing healthcare, life sciences, medical. I mean, that is the perfect track to be on. And just to continue with that, I saw that you do not support ESG at all. So, my viewers, environmental social governance, I personally do not support it. I've made many videos against ESG. What are your thoughts on that? Why don't you, I guess, participate in the ESG trend?
Yeah. So when I first started out in the industry, which was a long time ago, we had what were called socially responsible mutual funds. And they were mutual funds that didn't buy, energy companies and, probably tobacco, firearms, all that stuff. And the performance stunk, but you knew what you were getting. And you could make a decision as an investor. All right, I am willing to give up some performance in exchange for I'm only investing in companies that meet whatever. And I'm totally fine with that. Then the landscape changed. And all of a sudden, everything became ESG. And I am a big believer that you invest not to change the world, you invest to put your kids through college, retire, whatever it is. If you want to take some of that money you make on your investments and use it to reflect your values, go for it. I don't like being forced to buy into companies who are doing things that are not related to them making a profit. Because when companies make a profit, their stock price goes up. And that's why I'm investing. And then, you and I can have different opinions about whatever, climate change, all sorts of things. You use your money to support what you want. I'm using mine to support what I want. But once you start getting nonprofit maximizing stuff into investing, it goes off the rails. And once you start getting big institutions making these decisions, trying to implement change that they can't get implemented at the ballot box, that supplants democracy. If you believe a certain thing, we have a political process for you to advocate for that. When you've got guys running big asset management firms making those decisions, who elected them to make those decisions? We didn't. So yeah, I do have a problem with ESG.
Hey, we're both on the same page there because I have the same philosophy. If you're investing to make money, I mean, money has no feelings. Make the money, and if you want, you can support your cause. Like me personally, I have many investments in defense. Personally, I do stay away from tobacco and alcohol because everybody's so health conscious these days,
Yeah.
and a lot of companies are reducing that. But when it comes to
I mean,
defense,
and you could argue RFK is going to mess with a lot of that stuff. So there you go.
exactly. And I mean, I had a solid Coca-Cola portfolio. And then when RFK came in and said, we're going to eliminate sugar, I said, okay, I got to restart rethinking my Coca-Cola position.
Yep.
So even though, as we just mentioned, with especially RFK and the future trends coming up, what trends or market conditions do you currently see influencing the future of ETFs? Do you think portfolio managers are going to continue putting their morality and their ethics into the companies they choose, or say, for example, Trump is going to be in for 4 years, maybe JD the next 8? Where do you think the landscape is going to look like in the next year or maybe 10 years?
Yeah. So I think the bubble is burst on ESG. And, I think we are going to go back to what I had when I started in the industry is choice. If I want ESG, I can choose ESG, but companies are not going to be forced to implement ESG policies. I think we've pretty much, put the pin in that one. Where I think the future is AI. So we recently filed for 8 ETFs that use AI to pick the stocks and AI to pick the weightings. Because today, with today's technology, and the technology is just going to get better, I can blow away what an index firm could do and an active manager could do from the standpoint of putting together a portfolio using AI. I would argue it has almost made indexing obsolete. There's a couple of nuanced things you can do in indexing that AI is not there yet. But, if we're taping this, by the time it comes out, that could totally change. I mean, AI is improving every single day. I think that's going to be the future of not only ETFs, but asset management. I mean, I now use AI. AI gives me personalized portfolio recommendations. I mean, it's told me before, it knows my portfolio. It's told me, hey, sell this stock and buy this stock, and here's why. That's a game changer in so many different ways. So I think that AI is the future of our industry, not just ETFs, but investment management as well.
Very, very good point, because it's kind of having a personal assistant, but with a much deeper insight and connection.
And it's not just it's having the world's smartest analyst on your desktop for whatever, $200 a month if you're using, ChatGPT 4.5. Grok, I don't know what it, I mean, I have Grok too. I don't know how much that is, but if it's something, it's not much more than that.
And no, it is a game changer. It really does, because just 10 years ago, an individual would have to scour through hundreds and hundreds of documents, financial reports, look at things. But now, within a minute, you have an AI bot that just goes through thousands, and not hundreds, thousands of documents.
And also, it's unbiased. So
Yeah.
guys who have been in my industry always knew Wall Street research is biased, which is why you never see a sell recommendation except for XYZ announces bad earnings down 40%. Goldman Sachs takes them from strong buy to sell. It's like, all right, thanks. AI is totally unbiased. They're not out there worried about investment banking business.
It's pretty much strictly facts and what's in front of them.
Yep.
And also, just to continue with the AI, risk management. As you said, the AI will tell you, sell this and buy this, or recommend this. So these ETFs in your suite at Tuttle Capital, how do you manage risk management? Is it actively managed? Is it more AI based managed? Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so going back to the heat formula, the H is for hedges. I am a big believer everybody should have hedges. So now in our thematic ETFs, we really can't manage risk because I'm giving you a theme, and then it's up to you to manage risk around that. But what we're also doing is we just on Friday actually filed for a no bleed tail risk ETF. The symbol is OHNO. OHNO. I love that symbol.
I love that.
And, basically what we're trying to do there is always give you exposure to inverse S&P and volatility, but mitigate or eliminate the bleed that happens the 90% of the time the market's going up. And I used AI to help me construct that portfolio. So I basically said, hey, look, this is what I'm trying to do. Help me put together the pieces. And through a process, it did. And, again, game changer, because there's like 7 moving parts to this thing. And, and it's all options based. And I'm an options guy. But once you get past like 2 or 3 moving parts, I start to get a headache. So, 7 moving parts, 8 moving parts. I really needed AI's help to kind of, put all the pieces together. What am I missing? Rate this from a 1 to 10. All right, you're rating it an 8. How do I get it to be a 10? Oh, all right, here we go. So that's how I tell people to manage risk. Always have hedges in your portfolio so that if you're invested in the themes, and again, as we're taping this, the market's down 2%. My personal portfolio right now, I think I'm flat because my hedges are kicking butt, whereas all my thematic investments are getting crushed.
And that's an awesome point, because the hedging minimizes your losses, and also can maximize your gains, because the traditional way of investing was you had this set, and there were so many not missing, but there were other pieces that may have never been talked about or targeted. And so what you're doing and what Tuttle Capital is doing, especially with the help of AI, is targeting these areas that have never been targeted. So I think that's actually a really unique piece. And so what challenges, so when you're creating an ETF, what challenges or regulations or regulatory problems do you face? Like, for example, the Oh No ETF or the UFO ETF or any ETF that you do decide, what are the challenges does it take? Do you just file it and usually it's approved? Or what are some things that, you may have come across?
So the SEC doesn't approve; they just don't disapprove. So they're never going to say, "Hey, this is fine." They're just not. They're just not going to say, "Hey, this is not fine." And now under Trump, the SEC is a lot more liberal on things. So really, for us, the biggest challenge is just getting the word out. I'm in an industry that's dominated by a handful of massive players. And so trying to find the areas that those guys aren't getting into. How can we do what they're doing better? Which isn't hard because, when you're a massive $1 trillion organization, one, you don't move fast, and two, you're not really innovative. And three, you don't really need to be because people are going to buy whatever you put out. That's really the challenge is getting the word out. And also sometimes there are themes that I think you should be looking at, but you're not thinking of them. So like we have an ETF GUNZ, which is a self-defense theme. And we've had a lot of trouble getting the word out on it because no one's thinking about self-defense. But I mean, I do. One of my kids is in New York City. She has taser and she has mace. I have another kid in Chicago. He's got a taser. He's got mace. Most parts of the country, you wouldn't think of not having a home alarm. Crime has gone up. And, there is more and more of a demand for self-defense.
No, I
But
definitely agree because I'm here in Canada and our self-defense sector is very, very minimal. As you probably can tell, we're not allowed to have any weapons. Even pepper
yep.
spray is illegal unless you're in the woods or the forest. But can you elaborate more on the guns ETF because it's actually really cool.
Yeah. So, the idea is we want to have lethal and non-lethal. And also the idea is, I mean, a lot of people, oh, Trump's going to be a law and order president. You just don't go from where you were back to where we were, let's say 6 years ago, flipping a magic wand. That's not going to happen. We're having more and more and more crime. Yeah. I mean, again, my daughters had to hide in a grocery store in New York City from, some crazy guy hitting people on the head with a baseball bat.
Oh, wow.
It's a crazy world out there. And so we've got companies in here like Palantir that's making some of this technology, Axon, which is making some of this technology, OSI Systems, which is making a lot of the screening technology, Evolve, which makes like some technology to see, like to go up against school shooters. There's a whole bunch of new technology in self-defense that's coming out that's game changing. People aren't thinking about it, but I mean, the ETF since inception's been killing it. Even with the downturn recently in Palantir and Axon, it's still an amazing area. It's just people aren't thinking about it. It's not on their radar screen. They may be thinking about self-defense, like, oh my God, I just got broken into. I need to go out and get ADT, which is another one of our companies. I need to get a home alarm, but they're not thinking about it from an investment standpoint. And again, I always think thematically, when my daughter calls me because she's cowering in a grocery store, I'm thinking taser, mace,
Exactly.
self-defense, stocks, investment theme. Here we go.
That is definitely a game changer. I personally have never thought of that either. Like you will think of ADT as okay, I can invest in ADT, but you've never thought of investing in a self-defense sector. Defense, yes, but not self-defense. So I think that is
Yep.
actually a game changer. My viewers, most of you are Americans. I'm sure you can highly relate to what Matthew is saying with crime going up.
Unfortunately, yeah, they probably can.
I mean, unfortunately, here in Canada, our crime rate is going through the roof as well. Hence why Trump is, adding all these tariffs on us so we can bump up our security.
But when you're the 51st state,
With our governor who just
yeah.
resigned. And you know what? It's funny that you say that because a lot of Canadians actually want to become the 51st state. Who knows? Let's see what
All right,
happens.
that's interesting. That's not what we hear down here.
Oh, I guess it just depends on the state and how close you are. Because
Yeah.
I know here on the East Coast side, like for example, New York, Boston, where there's a lot of Canadians, they have no problem being the 51st state. But I'm sure maybe in other parts of Canada, it's a little different. So we've talked about AI as being definitely the future and revolutionizing the future. But outside of AI, what other sectors do you think will be on the come up? Of course, it will be AI included with, healthcare or industrial or anything like that. But what sectors do you think will also be a game changer coming up?
Yeah, so quantum computing is one area. We don't know how far that is away. Someone will come out and say 30 years, and someone will come out and say 2. Over the weekend, it looks like the Chinese jumped ahead of us again in quantum, so that ought to be interesting. AI has a lot of subsectors. So agentic AI, which also the Chinese jumped ahead of us this weekend in that. I mean, that's going to be the future of a lot of things. Physical AI, robots, at some point, probably in my lifetime, I would guess, we're all going to have personal assistant robots. Along those same lines, self-driving, which scares the heck out of me, but I guess that, that's the future as well. So those are some of the things, and then, in warfare, yeah, I think military technology is going to entirely change. And I think we saw that in Ukraine, where you had, $100 drones making ineffective, $1 billion tanks. So, I think gone are the days where we have these massive tanks, massive ships, massive guns. It's going to be drones and drone swarms. And one of the ETFs we filed for is a drone ETF, because I think that's the future of warfare, drones and anti-drones. So that's going to be a game changer. So those are the main areas I'm looking at. Yeah, I do also think, and I think it's awful that it is this way, but it is what it is. The GLP-1 drugs, that's a sector that's not going to change. I mean, give someone the choice of either taking a shot or changing their diet and exercising. Most people will take the shot.
Yep.
So, it is what it is. So, and then, crypto we mentioned. I do think crypto is the future. And, and you got to look at the precious metals with all the stuff that's going on in the world. Having an allocation to precious metals is not necessarily the dumbest idea.
I definitely am on the same page with you on that one because if we just talk about just defense and military strategy, the days of rolling in 10-ton tanks, the days of spending trillions of dollars on fighter jets when you can spend maybe just a few thousand on a really efficient drone. It is, and of course, warfare changes all the time, right? You can have biological, you can have technical warfare, and so on. And the Chinese, they have definitely been speeding up their technology and their expansion of not only growing to be the superpower, but also kind of being anti whatever we do. If we mention we're doing this, guess what? In a year, they've already accomplished it. And so where do you see Tuttle Capital in the next 3 to 5 years? Are you going to expand your suites? What do you think about that?
We're definitely going to expand our suites. So, we've got more thematic ETFs coming out. We have some option income ETFs coming out that are different. I've got Ono on the tail risk side coming out. We're also going to come out with an ETF model portfolio that we'll make available to people. I'm working on that. And we're setting up a wealth management firm. So, I was in wealth management, I got out of it, and I'm looking around, I'm like, the industry really hasn't changed. And as an ETF issuer, there's only so much I can do. I can't, if you call me up, hey, Matt, help me out, I can't. Legally, I can't say, hey, Jacob, do this, this, and this with your portfolio. And a lot of times people hit me up and I'll want to and be like, oh, man, what you're doing is not right. I mean, I would take this, this, and this. So, I finally said, you know what? We got to start a wealth management firm too. So we're doing that. I'm also writing a book about my investment
Nice.
strategy. And we just came out with our own podcast. We're on episode 4 of that. So we got to have you on.
Oh,
So,
definitely, definitely. And what's
yeah,
the name of the podcast so my viewers can check
it's
it out?
called the Rebel Finance Podcast.
Rebel Finance Podcast. Perfect. I'll have it in the description box so everybody can check it out.
Yeah. So, I think, we just did our 3rd episode. So yeah, we'll definitely have you on that. And, and I'm sure I'll do other stuff. I mean, I move very, very quickly. I wake up, I have an idea and we're doing it.
I actually love that you just, you see an opportunity and you just jump for it. I know many CEOs or other managers or management, they have to cross so many hoops and boundaries just to get one thing done. So Tuttle Capital is literally moving at such a fast pace. And so if you were to give any advice to a beginning investor, professional investor, any type of investor, what type of advice would you give them?
Yeah. So again, back to what I said before, the conventional wisdom is neither. In any aspect of our life, it is very hard to be successful doing what everybody else is doing. Now, not to say that you won't do okay if you just kind of do, all right, I'm going to put 60% in the S&P and 40% in bonds. Yeah, I mean, over time, you'll do fine. Um, if you want to do better, you've got to think outside the box. And I would look at, say, an approach like the heat formula, where we say, look, you should always have hedges. The market does not go up forever. I mean, we're sitting here now, it's going down, 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 down. And I'm doing fine. I mean, my hedges are killing it and they're offsetting my losses elsewhere. Yeah, on the upside, maybe you don't make as much, but to me, totally worth it to not be flipping out when the market's down 2%. The
That
E is for
emotional volatility.
yeah. I mean, the E is for edges. Always look for edges, structural edges, behavioral edges. A is for asymmetry. Design your portfolio and any trades for asymmetrical return, and then themes. Don't invest in asset classes, sectors, anything like that. Always be looking in terms of themes. So, people are coming out, oh, dividend stocks. It's like, just because a stock pays a dividend doesn't mean anything. But if you're looking at, say, AI adopters who happen to pay dividends, beautiful. But, small cap, no. I mean, small cap stocks have stunk for years. They're probably going to continue to stink. But if you look at themes, there are small cap quantum companies, robotic companies, those types of things, fine. So, just think outside the box if you really want to be successful.
So technically, the conventional way of investing is long gone, as they usually, butcher it into our brains, 40% stock, 20% this, 30% this, sit on it for 50 years, you'll be a millionaire. I'm guessing because I personally don't follow that rule because I'm not waiting 50 years. So it's all about, as you said, thematics, right? Instead of just looking at dividends, instead of looking at certain classes, it's all about let's group up this theme of companies and see where it's going to go. Am I right in saying that?
Exactly. I mean, and look at it, again, I'm way older than you. I was around during the internet boom and people always, oh, the internet bubble and it burst. Well, yes and no. I mean, look at Amazon and Apple and Microsoft and all those guys from, 2000 to now. that was a generational investment opportunity. If you invested in stocks based on the internet theme, we have the same thing in AI. It's not going to go up in a straight line forever. Would I be piling into NVIDIA right now? Probably not. But 20 years from now, is NVIDIA going to be the place you should have been? I mean, unless something radically changes, yes. Because none of what we've talked about, quantum computing, AI, robotics, none of it works without NVIDIA's GPUs. Again, not going to go up in a straight line. I'm not buying NVIDIA right now because I think we're coming down. But certainly you want to be thinking thematic. I mean, AI is the next generational investment opportunity, and you need to be in it.
I agree. Just like the internet boom, the internet of everything, we're right now in the AI of everything. I mean, Amazon came from selling books to now becoming one of the biggest conglomerates in the tech sector. That's
and that's a great point. You need to be able to think beyond. One of my biggest investing mistakes was in the late 90s, not understanding why Amazon should be worth more than Borders and Barnes and Noble combined. Because
yeah,
all it was an online bookseller that wasn't making any money and wasn't projected to ever make any money. And now I can't remember the last time I walked into a store because I have an Amazon app on my phone and I can be sitting in front of my TV in my underwear, at midnight and say, oh, you know what? I need this, this, and this. Boom. And it's at my house in 2 days. That's a game changer. I
definitely.
missed it. I mean, I've gotten into Amazon along the way, but I missed,
That
you know,
initial.
yeah, and I still kick myself 25 years later.
And you know what? That's what we're all going through right now, especially with AI trying to choose what to pick. Cryptocurrency, a lot of people are still afraid of it. They don't want to jump into it. I mean, lucky for those that jumped into it 10 years ago, but even now, it's not too late. It is going to be revolutionizing the future. Matthew, those were some amazing, amazing gems and wisdom. We're going to just take a little left turn here. On this channel, we do ask CEOs and founders and people I interview some really off the path questions, just fun questions.
Sure.
So if Tuttle Capital was a person, what kind of personality would it have?
Um, you know, Badass, not afraid to piss people off, go in somewhere and just be loud.
I love that. It's a trailblazer. It's just,
Yeah.
hey, we see it. Let's go for it. If it works, awesome. If it doesn't, we can pivot. What is the most random app that you probably have on your phone now, or something that you downloaded, tried it out, didn't like it, or loved it on your phone?
Huh. Random app. I'm not going to have anything interesting there. I think, the only thing and it really isn't, is just, WhatsApp. But that's because I'm on an investment chat group on WhatsApp. I never even knew. I mean, all these apps, I never knew what any of these were.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 years ago, I didn't even know what Twitter was. And I mean, now I use it all the time. But I'm not a huge app guy, except for I am now addicted to Twitter or
Hey,
X or whatever the heck you want to call it. To
yeah,
me, it's still
Twitter.
Twitter.
I never got into Twitter either until Elon bought it, and it became, I would say, a little bit more um, uh, good. I would say more general. There was no
Right.
censorship as it was before. Okay,
Exactly.
final question. If you were not in finance, investing, anything that has to do with money, what career path or what unrelated career would you have gotten into?
NBA.
Nice. You love
Not
basketball?
not 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 skill wise that I could, but yeah.
I
In,
love that.
in your hypothetical world, I would be the point guard for the Boston Celtics.
That's beautiful. Playing with some of the greats like Bird, Pierce. I love that.
Those are the guys I grew up with: Bird, Parrish, McHale.
No, I mean, that was my dream too, but here we are. All right, Matthew. So thank you so much for everything and all the information that you've told us today. But before we end off this interview, do you have any last mentions or any significant events that might be coming up, or anything you want to talk about about Tuttle Capital to share with my viewers and to put out there in the digital world?
Yeah, so we do a daily newsletter where, I provide my insights. It's called the Heat Formula Beehive, BEEHIIV.com. It's free. People can sign up for that. We do
Perfect. I'll
a
put that in the
monthly,
description box.
yeah, we do a monthly webinar, which I usually have a sign up link. Like I said, we do a podcast. So yeah, I mean, feel free to sign up for the newsletter and come to our events.
Perfect. Audience, my fellow members, please make sure you look into Tuttle Capital. Please make sure you look into Matthew Tuttle. One of the most unique CEOs I've interviewed, go-getter, trailblazer, as he said, badass company, badass firm. And we love that. We love breaking barriers. We love, people who take chances, take risks. So check it out. I will have all of his information in the description box and any links that he wants us to know about. And this is not the only time you're going to see Matthew on this channel. He's going to be on this channel a few more times. I will definitely, hopefully, be on his podcast and we can exchange information, exchange knowledge. So audience, until next time, stay ranting.